Hi, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Abhishek Bal, your host. In today's video, we're going to talk about the recent CFA exam pass rates, more noticeably in November 2021 exam. And I'm going to talk about the entirety of 2021 as well, the implications of it, and what the aspirants should look forward to in 2022 in the backdrop of the post-pandemic era. Now, for this particular video, I have taken help of the popular website 300hours.com in order to estimate the minimum passing score across all the three levels. Mind you, these are estimates and not sacrosanct truth in themselves, because the CF Institute really do not quite publish the MPS. It's just a guideline. So, without much ado, let's deep dive into the whole of it, and I present to you the analysis on my part. So let's take the first window, that was May 2021, of which 80,700 candidates took the exam, of 36%, having registering 36% pass rate, amounting to 29,000 candidates almost. Level 1 estimated MPS was 74%, level 2 at 66.5%, and level 3 at 59%. The pass rates were level 1 at 25%, L2 at 40%, and L3 at 42% respectively. The August window were considerably lower number of witnessed lower number of participation, of less than 30,000 candidates taking the exam, of which only close to 8,400 candidates managed to successfully pass the exam, which aggregates to around 28%. Noticeably, this sample size has been weighted the least in my analysis because of the size of the sample itself, and it's not quite a true representation of what things were, considering the fact that level 3 we had less than 1,700 people managing to pass the exam worldwide. However, one thing that I wanted to bring to your notice is that across all the three levels, the MPS estimates across the level ones have considerably risen. Earlier, which used to be in the mid to late 60s, have now inched to in the high 70s, early 70s, let's say 71, 72%, with the May 2021 estimate were being around 74%. On the other hand, the level 2 and the level 3 MPS have hovered around the historic levels. There's not been much of a change there. Now, this video is not only about the pass rates or the statistics out here, but the explanation that CF Institute came out with in somewhere in mid 2021, and followed there by series of other explanation that I believe needs to be actually further explained, because I'm not sure if that had served the intended purpose. So what I've done is that I've taken the entire bucket of 2021 and calculated the mean score, weighted average, of course. So 230,000 took the exam in 2021, of which close to 79,000 people have passed the exam, aggregating to 34.4% pass rate. And the weighted average pass rates for level 1 has been historic low at 29%, level 2 at 40%, and level 3 at 42.3% respectively. Watch again, the level 2s and the level 3s MPS estimates have remained considerably constant, while the level 1 MPS have risen considerably higher than what it used to be. Now, somewhere in mid to 2021, Peg Jobs, the then director of the academic credentialing, came out with a series of explanation, most notably published in Bloomberg, that the CBT format is neither easy nor harder as compared to the previous pen and paper format. But he also mentioned about the disruption being caused by the pandemic. Burnout was significant, apart from the physical and mental health issues. Candidates who were forced to defer their exam, either on their own volition or because of health issues or because of the local restriction, actually performed the poorest, and that's what their analysis told. But what surprised was that after that, in September 2021, Chris Weissy, the then senior head examination development, came out with the first set of video explaining their grading system and talking about the fixed bar method, and a host of other new terminologies that we were perhaps alien to. And I have posted a couple of pictures of his. This was in September 2021 when he was designated as Senior Head Examination Development, where the picture on your right is Chris Wisey as the Learning Experience and Assignment Development. All right, so I really don't know what they stand for, but this is what in nutshell he had to say. So he came out, as I told you, that he came out with 4 sets of videos. The first one being published in somewhere in September 23, 2021, where he talked about the fixed bar theory. So according to this, it really doesn't matter how the cohort is. Okay, what they talked about is that, in a nutshell, that CFA maintains a particular bar, or that should be talked about as the minimally qualified pass marks, or the minimally quality of the pool that they expect. So regardless of who you're sitting with worldwide, what you have achieved in your in your exam score, that's particularly immaterial as far as this bar is concerned. Now, this Chris Wisey made a special note of, because this he contrasted against the other examinations which are actually graded on a forced curve. And he explained that why forced curve measure is not something that actually CFA targets, because CFAI does not have a fixed target percentage of passing the candidates. So they would rather not trade that with the quality. That's the bottom line. And hence, what he talked about is that he saw a considerable deterioration in the in the examinees who had actually appeared in amidst the pandemic. So there are several impact to that, several theories to that, and one being about the fixed bar, second being the impact of the deferral. In November, what's interesting is that this was the time that he first talked about the JQC, or the just qualified candidate. Mind you, this was the second video from Chris Wisey, and here he talked about the grading system at the CFI, and that was the first time that he talked about the modified Angoff method. Now, for people who might be unfamiliar with the terminology modified Angoff method, so it goes like this in very simple language. Let's say we have 2 sets of candidates, set A and set B, okay? And in each of these candidate pools, let's say there are 100 test takers. So as it goes, let's say the top 5% of set A scores a mean of, let's say, 85% here in set A and 80% in set B. So according to modified Angoff method, they will pick up a fixed percentage. Let's assume for this particular example that that fixed percentage is 70%. So all that it would mean is that if you multiply this 85% with the 0.7, and if you multiply this with 0.7, this will result to somewhere, I think, somewhere around 58.7%, and this will result at 56%. All that it means is, according to the modified Angoff method, candidates scoring 58.7% of exam marks in set A or 56% in set B and above will be declared a pass. That's what the modified Angoff method is all about. So if you have to believe this, there is a sharp contrast which has emerged, and that is, this directly contradicts the fixed bar theory that he first propagated, well, at least according to me. January 10, which is about a month back, he came out with the grading pattern, how the grading is being done. And this is basically, he talks about that the timeline between the exam is being set and then the papers being received. Mind you, now the papers are completely online because a Prometric administers the exam. And then thereafter, how the graders possibly revisit their exam pattern, exam routine, exam sets that they have set, exam papers that they have set for the candidates, and then the benchmark those against what they had expected. So it goes like this, that while the initial planning for the exam was being done, the committee or the group that they were tasked with designing the exam had a certain benchmark of expectations. Okay, so it's like, against a particular set of exam, they would have expected this is how the most of the candidates or a maximum of the examinees would have performed. So they have a set expectations of that. Now, during the exam, the actual experience may differ. So the actual experience may be above or below the expectations that the committee would have had in their mind. Second point being, in this grading adjustment, that there could be some questions. Those questions may be doubtful, or those questions may be erroneous. So how to actually get over those questions, because they could have actually considerably impacted the performance of the candidates in the exam. Well, that happens all the time. So he said that the lead time between the exams and the exam being graded, this provides the committee or the group that they are tasked with administering the exam to revisit their entire program and do the necessary adjustments. So that video was published in January 10, about a month back. And then just a couple of weeks before, rather a couple of weeks, February 2, so it's a couple of weeks back, he came out with the fourth video, and this talked about equating. So the equating is basically nothing, but he said that, let's assume that we have two sets of papers. One is hard paper, another is relatively simple paper, and each has, let's say, 10 questions to attempt. So in the hard paper, if you successfully correctly answer 4 out of 10 questions, that would be considered equal or equivalent, being the more precise term, to 6 correct questions of the simple paper. So this would mean that a 60% marks here would perhaps be equal to the 40% or 42% of the marks in a hard paper, and yet both of them will be then placed on the same pedestal in order to glean out the MPS or the just qualified candidates. So these were the 4 different theories that he actually propagated across all the 4 videos that were published in the last 4-5 months. So the common terminology that came across is equating, standard setting, which of course has got to do with a couple of things that he mentioned. One is that if the underlying curriculum has if the curriculum have undergone a considerable change, then the standard setting, which has got to do, I believe, with the expectations of the team that handles the examination, would also accordingly modify or adjust their expectations. That's what he meant by standard setting. He also said that the demographic shift, if there's be a considerable change in the demographic shift, then also the standard setting would be accordingly adjusted. So in nutshell, what it talks about is that the committee that are in charge of actually creating those expectations in and around the exam designing and how the actual performance would be, they would moderate or they would adjust their expectation accordingly. So that's what they're saying is all about the standard setting. Multiple forms of exams. So this is something which is not new. Even when in our times, we could not have expected the same exam formats being offered, or the same versions of the exam being offered across all the candidates. It doesn't happen. I come from Asia, so I took my exam in India, and my examination paper, my exam version need not be same with that of a candidate appearing somewhere in Europe. That's bound to differ. We understood that. The last point being that of the demographic shift. Now, across all of them, I still do find a lot of lacuna, a lot of gap, or maybe it's just me. But one thing which is becoming dangerously clear, or rather I would say that there a path which perhaps is less understood, is that when you talk about this anomaly between the fixed bar and multiform exams and equating and all of this, if you put around, what appears is that in view of CFI, let's say this is the entire continuum of marks between 0 and 100. So depending upon the cohort, the choice of the cohort is neither in the control of the CFAI or the group that actually administers the exam within the CFAI. So it's basically the number of candidates that are actually registered for the exam, on which nobody has any control. So we got to make selection from there. But in CFAI's view, that's not the case. What they say is that, I couldn't care less how the cohort is. I have a rigid set standard. And if the cohort is good enough to surpass this or touch this, or they could actually, fly over this, then I may pass 100% of the candidates. And on the contrary, if no matter how good the cohort may appear to be, if they do not meet my minimum set of expectations, then I will not pass any one of them. So this is an open-ended thing that they have actually put in, not quite what a competitive exam should be. That's not how a competitive exam is being graded. I understand the concept of forced curve. I do also understand the concept of having a fixed bar terminology. But then if that is the case, if you're having a fixed bar method to be followed, then you should also have fixed percentage of people passing the exam. There cannot be so much of volatility in and around, and please, you can't blame it on the pandemic anymore. So that's my nutshell view of this whole thing. So what is it for the next candidates, for the candidates who will be taking the exam? Well, to begin with, you cannot really afford to go easy anymore. Okay, so the glory days of 40% pass rates for L1 or 50% pass rates for L3, they are perhaps over. Okay, so if you are scoring in your mocks anywhere less than 75% in L1, 70% in L2, or 62% in L3, then I would say that you really need to pull up yourselves, put your act together, because it's not going to work out. I don't think so. So consistently, you should aim at scoring well above these figures. Number one. Number two, the very estimates published in the 300 hours, with all due respect, that is a little bit of a question now. That's a little bit of a suspect now, because with so much of proliferation of the exam administrations with multiple windows, with multiple versions, I'm not sure on what basis the 300 hours would be collecting data and collating them in order to glean out the possible MPS. So this is under cloud. This is up in the air. And I would think twice before putting my 100% reliance on these estimates. So this is the dilemma that I had actually pictured in my last presentation as well. And I put it once again. It's kind of very sad that how things have actually unfolded. So see the difference between most of the candidates, majority of the candidates who do pass the exam and who do not pass the exam, that's perhaps is very low, very thin of a margin that if you can think of. Most of the people who pass the exam, I see them at least in L1, they pass with on the 90 percentile border marks. Well, that's pretty understandable, because if you have 25% of pass rates in L1, that would mean the top 25% are anywhere at the 75 percentile mark. That's understandable. But majority of them who actually publish their results in the social media have 90% plus in this score. So that really means that they're doing a lot of filtering at the ground level itself. Now, why they're doing it, what is the motive behind that? Well, I can't really say. All that I can say is that don't fall for these, 4 times a year L1, or 2 times a year L2, or 2 times a year L3. Don't fall for them. Your minimum time to actually pass the exams remains the same. That is anywhere between 18 to 24 months. If you consider the preparation period for the L1, 6 months. So that's where the whole thing is. I don't think it has benefited. And a parting shot. Seeing all of this, really speaking, I believe, and this is my own personal opinion, CFI, amidst the pandemic, have really complicated the things much more than what they were. As if the pandemic itself were not enough. Putting in so many windows of tests, with so many of administrations, with so much of versions of tests, they only confuse and muddle the average test takers. And this may actually harm the reputation going forward. I'm not too sure, unless CFA actually puts around a proper system. There's something which is going on that's not quite in the public. That's again my understanding, and I hope really that CFI sorts out the matter without witnessing so much of vagaries in the pass rates, at least in the L1 level. If we know for a fact that going forward, L1 is going to be, let's say, 22% to 25% of people actually will pass the exam, well, candidates can be prepared. If there's a tectonic shift that's happening, there's a paradigm shift that's happening, that's absolutely okay. But then do not suddenly, under the guise of that fixed bar, do not suddenly, all of a sudden, do not up the pass rate of L1 to somewhere around 40%, because then that is going to send a mixed signal to the average test taker. So that's the whole thing. And as a parting shot, if you really ask my opinion, I really do believe that twice a year L1 or once a year L2 and once a year L3 were good enough. That gave an ample opportunity for the serious candidates to prepare, because it's, mind you, it's a serious exam. Okay, you have almost close to 10,000 pages to be mastered, if you're studying from the CFA curriculum book. Now, instead of that, making it 4 times L1, you know, 2 times or 3 times L2, I'm not sure how many times, and again 2 times L3, that would have a more of a dilatory effect. And secondly, I believe that, the 3 hours exam was much better than the 2 hours 15 minutes time schedule that one has. Because for one reason, that the volume is huge, you possibly cannot test a candidate's ability within 2 hours 15 minutes, vis-a-vis 3 hours. They are always 3 hours exam will always give you a better idea, a better grasp, or a better wider range of expanse of testing ability of the candidates. That's what my personal belief is. Rest is up to CFI. I believe that, if you like this video, then put a thumbs up, and let's make a generation aware of how things are actually unfolding. Maybe it will help you. Good day. I'll see you soon.